Okay, it's March 4th, 2019. We're sitting here with Hazel Fulmer and Fred Childress. And we are at Aunt Hazel's house at, what's your address again?
891.
891 Shenandoah in Deltona, Florida. And she's not only going to live here about another month or so because she's moving back to Michigan and moving in with her son Blaine and selling all her stuff. So we're catching her at a good time. So I want you guys to talk first a little bit about just tell us your story briefly, and we'll start with Aunt Hazel.
Well, I was born in Salem, South Carolina in March the 10th of 1933. And we lived there about 2 years after, until I was about 2 years old. And then we moved to somewhere in Greenville, I'm not sure about that. But I come up here when I was about 4 years old.
Up to Michigan, you
Up
mean?
to Michigan,
Yeah, right.
yeah, up to Michigan when I was 4 years old. And I was the only girl in the family, it seemed like, because Aunt Bee was gone by the time I was 8. Well, I was even younger than that, really, but she'd come back when I was 8 for a visit. And other than that, I lived with 6 brothers for a while. And then eventually they all went into the service of one kind or the other. And I was left alone pretty much. Fred and I were to ourselves there for a while with my mother and my father. I graduated from Clarenceville High School in 1952. And then I got married about a year and a half later, and married my husband Walter B. Lambert. Lived with him for a while, quite a few years, and then about 27 years, and then I come to Florida to live, and he went back and I stayed. But I had a happy childhood. I was the only girl, but I was held back in a lot of things, being the only girl and having 6 brothers. I kept a closer watch on. My mother was always calling me back no matter where I was going. I couldn't be going with those boys. But I did have some 2 neighbor girls, and we become great friends, and we're still friends today.
And who are they?
Sandy Dewater and Rosie, we lost her, but Sandy and I are still seeing each other pretty regularly. When I get to Michigan, we see each other quite a bit. And we pull in Marty and Bob and Darlene. Fred's never around.
So you had a few kids along the way, as I recall,
Yes,
too.
I did.
How many?
I had 6 children. I had 5 girls and 1 boy. And I also had a stepson. He was 3 years old when I married his father. But we had a good time on Milburn Street. So the kids had their backyard looked more like a park than a backyard. We had I don't know, I think we all had a pretty good time.
Yeah. So tell me your kids in birth order. Who was the first?
Well, Debbie was the first, and she was born in, I forgot the year she was born. But anyway, I
Somewhere
had
in
Debbie.
the early 50s, right?
Yeah. I think I was 54 when I had her. I mean,
Right,
no,
1954.
yeah, it was 1954 when I had her. And then came Pat, and then Jeannie, Sandy, and Blaine. And Kathy, she come along and she was a spoiled kid. Having all those sisters and a brother.
Yeah. So when you moved to Florida, you were here for a while, you remarried, right?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Well, I met Cecil, and he was a friend at first, and all of a sudden we were going together, and he wanted to marry me real soon, and I did marry him quick, but it was a good marriage. I know that he loved me and I loved him. We had some good years together.
How long were you married?
Oh, I think I was married about 18 years to him.
And then he passed away, right?
Yes, he passed away.
Now, you didn't tell, what was Cecil's last name?
Fulmer, Fulmer.
Okay. And your first husband's last name was Lambert, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, now that his big sister showed him how to do it, Freddie's going to tell us about his story. Where did it start?
It started on Britain Road in 1941. I was born in the house. The house is still there on Britain Road in Livonia, which used to be Farmington, and Livonia annexed it. I was grown up as Freddie Childress. I had 6 brothers and 2 sisters. Never really got to grow up with the latter sister, Beatrice. I grew up with my sister Hazel, and she was my protector, and she carried me around most of my infant life. And then we moved to 22570 Kenwood. No, 20457 Kenwood.
Okay, and what was the address on Breton Road?
I don't know. I don't remember.
Yeah.
I was about 5 years old when we left there.
Yeah. And what was your birth date? You said 1943, I think you were
No,
born.
1941.
41, okay.
Yeah, it was January 28th, 1941.
Okay.
And
So I interrupted you. You moved to Kenwood.
we moved to Kenwood, where I started school at 5 years old in Lutheran school across the field from us, and stayed there for 1 year, and then I went to Central School in Farmington, and from there I went over to the junior high school over on Middle Belt, the other side of 8 Mile Road, between 8 Mile and 7 Mile Road. I was about 21 when I got married to Sharon Julianne Cornick in 1961. I was married for her until I think it was 1980 when she passed away, and then we lived over on Colgate then, and from Colgate I moved to Howell, Michigan, built a house there in Howell, and from Howell I moved to 5699 North Swede Road, and built a little apartment out in back of my daughter's house, which I am still at.
And that's in Midland.
And that's in Midland, Michigan. When I was 18 years old, I found out that my sister sent my birth certificate in, and I found out that my name was Ernest Frederick Childress, and which I promptly turned around and scolded her that she got me the wrong birth certificate, and she told me that, oh no, you are Ernest Frederick Childress, that is your name. So.
Well, and the craziest thing is you aren't the only Childress brother who went by his middle name. Who else went by their middle name?
Let's see, there was
Harold.
Harold, yeah, which his name was James, which we refused to call him James. We always called him Harold, no matter what anybody said. Let's see, who else was there? B, I don't think anybody really knew her name. I don't think she even really knew her
No, when
real
she got
name.
a birth certificate, it had a different name on it.
Right. So,
Really? So that was her middle name.
and Gene, his was Curtis Eugene, but everybody called him Eugene. And I married Nancy Bacon, and that lasted for about 3-4 years, and
What year was that?
I thinking it's around 1990, and that only lasted about 3 years, and then that's when I went up north where I'm living now.
Okay, now you missed a couple things. You got a couple of kids, and you
Yeah,
spent a little
I
time
have.
in the Navy too, right?
I have 4 kids. The first one was Robert, and 5 years later, the next one was born, which was Patricia, and then 5 years later, Michael was born, and then 5 years later, Jennifer, my youngest daughter, was born. And
Now you're a grandpa several times
Yeah,
over, right?
yeah, I'm a grandpa, 3 times grandpa, 1 time great grandpa, and they call me GP for the great great.
That's cool. Tell us about your Navy life.
Well, I was in the service. I went in 1962, went through Great Lakes training. From there, I went to Washington, D.C., where I was a cook striker for 1 year. After that, they sent me to Norfolk, Virginia, and I was in the deck force for 3 years. In the deck force, I went to various countries, to Spain. I went to the Virgin Islands. I went through every Virgin Island except for, I think it was St. Croix. I didn't go to St. Croix. Went to Puerto Rico. I went to Panama when they were having the Panamanian crisis, right after it, and we were there as a peacekeeping force. And after that, I come home and was discharged in 1966. Got a job at Detroit Diesel and spent 34 years at Detroit Diesel as repairman. I was test operator. I was sweeper. I was repairman. I was an inspector there. I did just about all the jobs on the telegraph side. I only worked on the Detroit side for maybe 3 months and retired up north. First of all, I had an apartment in downtown Midland where I stayed for about 6 years. Had a girlfriend, Angela Queen, for about 6 years, and then I came to live out there with Pat.
Now, in your Navy career, you missed an interesting chapter, and that was the Cuban Missile Crisis. Tell us about that.
Well, that was when they had the missile crisis, and we took off and went towards Cuba. We didn't go near Cuba. We were a striking distance of Cuba in case the blockade didn't work, and we had like 300 Marines on our ship in case we had to land in Cuba.
What was that like? How did that feel?
Actually, it felt like any other day to me. You know, it's just another day at sea. But it was high tension. We didn't know what was going to happen.
You weren't worried about nuclear war or something like that?
Always worry about nuclear war since we were just kids. They was teaching us how to hide under desks, which was absolutely of no value. But to this day, we're still in the same place, worrying about what somebody's stupid move they're gonna make that we may all disappear from this earth.
So, speaking of kids and grandkids, this lady over here has you beat. You told us how many kids you have. How many grandkids and great-grandkids?
I have, I had 6 children, and I have 13 grandchildren, and I have four great, just great,
Okay.
and
So-
one great.
And you must know something about parenting.
A little bit.
Give us some advice. What would you tell parents?
Don't have kids.
Oh, I don't know. They're all different. They have to be treated different.
But you love them all the same, right?
Oh, yes. Yes, they really are a reward to us. Children are.
How about you, Fred? Other than don't have them, what is your parenting advice?
To listen, try to understand, and be stern. Don't go back on what you say. And my biggest thing is do what you say and say what you mean.
Okay, that's all some pretty good advice. So, anybody watching this in the future is going to want to know about your earliest memories and things that were like monumental events, like World War II, and what Detroit was like back then, and that sort of thing. So, I'm going to start with you, Hazel. What are your earliest memories, and what do you remember about some of those monumental times?
I think my earliest memory was when the day my parents left us, some of us children in South Carolina, and the train went by where we lived, within 3 doors down, and we waved to them bye, and I really didn't realize what was happening at that point, that I was being left for a while until they got settled in Detroit. They moved to Detroit from South Carolina, and then into the outskirts of Detroit. We were raised.
So, you were how old when that happened?
I must have been about 3.
Yeah. And they left you. How long were you? And who did you live with? And how long were you with them before you were reunited?
I lived with Aunt Diamond mostly, and sometimes with Aunt Julie, but mostly with Aunt Diamond
Okay.
until then they had B bring us all up on the train to Detroit. But they took my brother Bob and Jean when they left my parents when they first left South Carolina. But they left us behind till they got settled in Detroit.
So who was left behind, and again, how long was that?
Well, I was left behind. Herb was left behind. Gus, Harold, and B.
And so B was the one in charge, and you guys all hopped on the train together.
Yes, and she was probably 14 years old.
Now, what did that feel like?
It was fun for me, but it wasn't. I didn't have the responsibility of all these snot-nosed kids on the train.
Yeah. What happened when you got to Detroit? Were they there for you?
Yes, they were waiting for us in Detroit and took us to the home that they had found And we didn't live there very long, but I think I was probably 6 years old when we moved from there.
Yeah. What was it like to ride the train in those days?
It was, I enjoyed that, I really did. But we got to run up and down the aisles some, to play and meet other children. So it was a nice trip for us, but B probably was pretty intense having the responsibility of all of us.
Yeah. How did you eat? Did you pack a lunch or something, or what?
No, we bought, yes, we did take some sandwiches on the train, but we also ate some food, bought some food on the train.
Were there any stops, or was it straight through?
There were stops.
Yeah.
And we wanted to get off, of course, but they wouldn't let us.
Yeah. So, that was about still in the 30s, do you think?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was, I think I was about 4 years old, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But in that neighborhood,
So,
4 or 5.
what are your early memories of living in Detroit?
I don't remember living in Detroit at all. We lived in Farmington.
Right, well, I meant Farmington, that
Oh.
area.
Oh, what was the question?
What are your early memories of life in Farmington?
Some of it's real big. I remember living in Redford Township, and we had an attic that had a floor in it, and we played up there a lot.
What was going on in that Detroit at that time? It was, the auto industry was big. Do you remember anything about overall things about that area?
Not too much do I remember, because I really didn't care at that age,
Yeah, right, sure.
But I remember when the war was over, my sister B let me go with them downtown Detroit on the trolley, and the people were jumping on and off the trolley. Nobody was paying for it or anything, and the trolley was going real slow, so they would jump. They were partying in the streets all over, and they were jumping on the trolley and jumping off of it, and nobody was. It was bedlam, but I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
And it was dark, it was at nighttime.
Do you remember anything about the war when it was going on?
Only that when the news come on, we better be quiet, because the news about the war, we didn't have no TV in those days, and Dad sat close to that radio because he had 2 sons in action in the service at that time.
Yeah, who was in action?
Gus and Harold.
And they were both in the Navy, right?
Yes.
No, Gus was in
No,
the
Gus was
Army.
in the Army.
Gus was in the Army, okay. I always thought Gus was in the Navy. I
No.
learned something today.
No.
And were you worried for them? Were you old enough to realize that they were in harm's way?
I don't think I was worried as much as when the news come on, that house had to be quiet. And that's what my dad waited for every night, about the news about the war.
Yeah. Tell me about your mom and dad. What do you remember about them?
Well, I remember my dad worked hard to keep us up, and Mom worked hard trying to keep us straightened up.
Yeah.
But she gave more freedom to the boys than she did me, really.
Yeah, you were on a shorter leash, huh?
Yeah, I certainly was.
All right, Fred, your turn. I want to hear your earliest memories of growing up in Farmington.
Okay, I was just a little booger running around, and my sister taking care of me most of the time. We had the neighbors, which was Dick Dewater, Malcolm Dewater, Rosie, Sandy, and Carolyn. Carolyn was my nemesis. She's the one that always went and got in trouble with me. We hung around until we were about 11, 12 years old. I can remember my sister and me by the front porch. I sat on a tomato worm, which was the highlight of my youth.
What happens when you sit on a tomato worm?
It hurts.
Yeah.
They sting you. And me and my brothers and sisters had an apple orchard in the back, which we used to use as ammunition for fighting with our neighbors, the de-waters, every now and then. But most of the time we were all friends and running around and doing different things, chasing shooting stars, then trying to find them out in the field without too much luck. And then we would play tricks on our neighbor, going up and knocking on their door and running and hiding in tires. And my earliest remembrance of the war was when the war ended, we were out there beating on drums and rolling tires down the road, and they took us into downtown Farmington where they had dummies hanging by the neck out of the two-story windows representing the Germans. And that was, I remember we used to listen to the radio. The radio, we had the Fat Man, we had Mr. and Mrs. Jones, we had the Lone Ranger, the Phantom, and we sat by that there radio listening to it, and I can remember that it was actually better than watching TV because your imagination took you all kinds of places with the radio. Then we got a TV set probably in about 1954, which was black and white with a antenna with tinfoil on the top that we'd have to switch around to try to find a station somewhere.
Yep.
And I really missed the radio because it took you places that TV couldn't take you. I remember the creek where we used to go down and get in trouble, get wet, and that was like our playroom. And then we had woods in back of the house, which we were always in, and a big swing with a rope on it where you'd jump out of the tree. And one day I jumped out of the tree to swing down on the rope, and as I was swinging wide, the rope broke, which was another experience of my life. And then we moved over to Colgate when I was about 5 years old. And I've already said about the school that I went to and everything. I had 4 kids. 2 kids survived. Let's see, Bob was in an accident in 1975, head injury, and he's in Carroll, Michigan, and I go see him once a week.
Michael died. Some sort of a group home there?
Yeah, it's like
okay.
a group home there, and it's a very good place. He's in a good place. People take care of him, and I go every week, and sometimes I go to, whenever there's a team meeting, I go. If there's any concerns, I always take care of it.
Yep. And now you were telling us about Michael.
Michael, he got sick when he's about 32 years old. Not too sure exactly what he died of, but he was way overweight, and he started losing weight and not eating, and we tried to get him help, and he was scared of doctors and needles and wouldn't have nothing to do with them. So we lost him. And Pat, she married Dennis Nagel. They lived up in Midland, Michigan for a while. They're still there. And I moved up after I left Howell, Michigan.
She's still up there, but not Dennis.
Dennis died, forget the year that he died, about 10 years ago. He got hit by a truck crossing by the Zwocky Bridge.
And he was helping a motorist that ran out of gas, was it?
No, he had a van, and the van had 200,000 miles on it. And they were looking into getting them a new one, and the head gasket went on it. And he stopped at the van stopped right before the Zwocky Bridge, and we don't really know exactly what happened, other than we figured there was a construction area across the road, and he went to get water to put into his van, and he started across, and it was a back and forth thing, but the truck, I think, tried to swerve. He tried to swerve, and it hit him and killed him.
Yeah. So Aunt Hazel, you had 2 children too that you lost.
Yes, I
Want to
did.
tell us anything about that?
Well, Jeannie we lost with cancer of the lungs, and Debbie we lost real quick, shockingly. She wasn't sick, but in the hospital for maybe 4 days, and we lost her. That was a real shocker.
And
But
Jeannie was how long ago, do you think? How many years ago?
she was in 14, the year before.
2014. And Debbie was very recent,
Yes,
right?
in October.
Okay, so just 6 months ago or so. So now I have a shot at both of you, and I'm thinking about again trying to give a flavor of what life was like in Detroit and in that era, and I'm thinking about entertainment. And I know one person in particular, Herb. He loved music,
Yes.
but what do you think of when I mention that?
Oh, that he loved music so well. He played the trumpet. And one time he was sick on the couch. I don't know what was wrong with him, but he paid me to keep his records going, his music, while he laid in bed.
No kidding. What do you remember about the music of that era that you liked?
I can't think about it.
The big band.
The big bands, you know,
Yeah,
because that's what Herb played.
right.
Huh.
He loved music. If he is around, you usually hear something playing.
Now, was he the only one who had that feel for music and
Yes,
loved
I
music?
believe so. Fred
Yeah.
tried to take trumpet, but it wasn't too
Yeah,
good.
Fred, you were a trumpet
What do you
player.
mean I wasn't too good? I played you a tune.
You dropped it so quick.
I played in the band. I played in the high school band.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I played in the high school band for all my high school years, you know, I was there. And I still play it. I pick it up. I don't play for anybody. My sister's the first one that I actually played for. And now she tells me I don't play.
You're not paying attention. Well,
Well,
she's
you didn't play it like Herb did. I mean,
No.
Herb music.
No, he went out and he went different places with his friends, and his friends would come over to the house, and I remember playing the piano where you pump the foots. They call it air piano, I think, and you pump the pedals, and there was a roll on it, and it would roll the music and play all the songs of the 40s and probably not the 50s. Everybody more or less was out working, and that was about it but I can remember them all coming over to the house and singing by the piano, and that was over in Britain.
now was he in a band?
He was in his own band, and I think there was him, there was a clarinet, there was a trombone I can remember. I don't actually remember who the people he played with was, but yeah, I can remember him.
So we're talking about Herbie. I'm going to go back over to you, Hazel. I want you to tell me a little bit of something about each one of your brothers and sisters. Just something good or something sad or something interesting.
Well, my sister, I lost. She went south when I was 8 years old, so I don't really have too much memories of her, other than I know we had a potbelly stove and we were all sitting around it, and she was in charge of me, and I was small, real small, and I got burned on that stove, and my father made her take the bus and go buy medicine for my burns. That sticks in my mind with having a sister the most, I think. But she left me real quick. She left at 8 when I was 8, and that. So I was grounded with the boys, and my mom kept a close eye on me every time there's a group of kids, boys. She called me back because it was always all boys. So my closest friends were my neighbors, and we played a lot together.
Yeah.
And
What did you do for play?
for what?
What did you do when you played?
Played? Oh, well, we all played together as a bunch, and we'd play, in the evenings we'd play Rover, Come On Over, and games like that with a bunch of kids in the Dewater's yard.
Tell me about all those boys you grew up with. Let's start with Harold.
Well, there's not too many memories with him. It seemed like he was always gone. And the next thing I knew, he went to New York, and then he married in New York. So, but I remember Harold going to a different school than we went to. He went to a Farmington school, and we went to a Clarksville.
Oh, okay.
But the grades didn't go high enough at Clarksville.
Yeah. So, okay, who's next?
And then Gus, I remember him on the playground being my protector. If I wanted to swing, he would go over and get it for me.
Knock somebody off.
Yeah, Gus didn't take guff from anybody, right?
No, he did not. They respected him on the playground, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
And I could use his name for protection a lot of times.
How about so keep going. Tell me about the other guys.
Well, and Herb, to me, Herb was a very gentle person. Always nice. Always wanting to do something to help you. And he'd ask you if you needed money. But Gus did that too. But they both asked me if I needed any money often.
And then you got your kid brothers, the three who were younger than you, right?
Yeah. Well, Bob was older than me, but
Oh, he was. Okay.
yeah. And we were great friends. Nobody had any trouble with Bob anyway.
Yeah.
But Bob and I were pretty close, and then Gene and I were at odds a lot. My dad had to break us up, but actually fighting at times. But all in all, we become great friends later on, of course.
Now, was Gene closest in age to you?
Yeah, he was 2 years older
Yeah.
than me.
So maybe that's why
Younger
you
than
two
me.
clashed, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's the baby, Freddie.
Yeah, the baby Freddie. That was my kid, really. And I did everything for him, I think, and watched over and protected him from his brother Gene. And I kept a close eye on him.
Did he need a lot of protecting?
No, only from Gene, because he would throw stones at Gene and his buddies, so I had to protect him. He'd come running in the house, and we'd shut him out. And one time he tried to come through the window. And then when my dad come home, he was looking at the window, and he said, they told him Gene done it, and he's standing there, and Gene's standing there, and he says, "How'd you do that, son?"
Okay, Fred, your turn. Tell us about your brothers and sisters.
Well, my sister was my protector. My brothers were all quite a bit older than me, except for Gene. He was the closest in age to me, and I tried to follow him different places, and he did everything he could to keep me from following him. But my sister Hazel, she kept me from getting clobbered more than a few times.
Still is still.
So tell me about Harold. Let's start with Harold.
Harold, I remember he's in the Navy. I remember him coming home in Britain, and he had a couple, I forget, Shenandoah, I think, was one of his friends. Godfrey was another one, his friends that used to chase me up a tree over on Britain Road every time he came over. He just acted mean. He wasn't really mean.
Yeah.
But Harold, I remember him in his sailor suit when I was over on Britain Road, and then when we moved over to Kenwood, he was over at the gas station, working at the gas station my dad owned, and Harold was working over there, Gus was working over there. I don't know, Gene more than likely was working over there, I don't remember.
He was hanging out.
So the
Yeah,
gas
but-
station was the family hangout, right, Hazel?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
But you said you weren't included as much in that.
No, I was always sent out because they kept saying, having to tell everybody to watch their language, and so finally it was easier that I wasn't around.
All right, Fred, just tell me one thing about each of the other boys. Let's go with Gus.
Well,
First thought of him.
Gus I was kind of scared of because he's kind of gruff, but he wouldn't ever do anything or anything, but he was the one that was always in a fight, or you'd come home from a bar and he'd have a bloody nose or a black eye or something always going on with him. So I really didn't get to know him personally because when he came around I disappeared a lot. Then Herb, he was always smiling, laughing, very, very good humor. He's always in a good mood, it seemed. And he had this boat that it was Chris Craft out inboard, and I don't think they ever really got it running. They got it in the water one time, as I can remember, and went out around 200 feet, and it stopped, and they'd haul it, they'd roll it back and start all over again. And that was Herb's boat. And then I can remember him doing the ice cream route, and every now and then he'd bring us ice cream over. Then I can remember him doing the free press route. Every now and then he would stop and take me with him. But I think his son Jimmy went with him a few times there on his route.
Good.
But they would always stop in a little hamburger place over on Grand River there, and we'd have those there greasy burgers over there.
What was your paper route like?
My paper route was 500 customers and dirt roads and a lot of distance, all the way from 8 Mile all the way up to Walnut Lake Road.
So how long would it take you on a night to do those 500 customers?
Well, I picked my papers up at 1 o'clock in the morning, and I wouldn't get done until 8 o'clock in the morning.
How many customers did Herb have?
Herb had about the same amount as I did. They were all big routes. You did them by car.
Yep.
And that took a toll on everybody's car because of the dirt roads, and sometimes in the spring the roads would just go completely out, and we had to walk a couple papers up a couple roads.
That added to the fun.
That added to the fun, yeah.
Okay, I'm almost out of tape here, so I'm just going to ask you each to make just kind of one final thing. Anything, Hazel? What else do we need to know about Hazel that's important, and give us some insight into you?
Well, it was kind of hard being raised with all boys because Mom always had to keep me away from their friends when they come over. That's what I remember the most about being raised. I
Yeah.
wasn't allowed to run and do like the rest of the kids because
So-
of being a girl.
Thinking of you today, Hazel, all grown up, what do we need to know about you? What's one thing you want people to know about you?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know that I really care.
She had a happy life.
Yeah, I had a good life. I love my children, and that's the best part of my life, of course. But you don't have enough to lose in me, I'll tell you that.
You don't have enough what?
Children to lose. If you lose them, that it wasn't easy to lose them. You know, you have them or you love them.
Yeah.
I think that's the most main thing.
How about you, Fred? What do we need to know about Fred in conclusion?
Well, I always tried to treat people like I'd like to be treated. I probably never took any guff from anybody. I was the last kid in the house, and everybody took off and left me. And it was kind of rough in the beginning, but I plowed through for my life. So, and I'm satisfied with the way I turned out.
Okay. We are too, right, Hazel? You think he's okay?
Oh, well, yeah, I think he's okay. He's a one okay guy.
Tell the truth now.
Oh, I can't do that now.
You can't do that on TV, on camera.
Well, we'll give you a chance to wrap it up. You tell us what you think about Hazel.
What I think about Hazel, she was always there for me, no matter what. And I come down here, and she takes care of me down here.
All right. Thank you.